Oh, well, hello there, everyone, and welcome to episode number 89 of FinalBossTV, your wild and game rating show. I'm your host for this evening. My name is Adam K.A.K. Bay, and we finally come to it. This is the last standard Warlords of Draenor class interview for the whole Warlords of Draenor interview junket. You do, of course, know it. We are going to do some catch-up episodes in the future. We have a double FinalBossTV weekend coming up next weekend. More details on that later on in the show, of course. And then we'll be catching up with tanks, healers, ranged, and melee DPS in the future, just to see some of the classes we've been talked to in a long time, since, like, Tier 17, like Highmaul, some of them, and see what Tier 18 has changed and how the ring meta is affecting them. I'm sure you and chat are loving the ring meta. If you're on the audio-only version of the podcast, you just didn't see me make a really funny face. But anyway, tonight we're talking to not one, not two, but three guests for mages. Did the same thing for warlocks, felt mages deemed it necessary as well. So who are those guests, you might wonder? Who are those guests? Well, this gentleman does a lot of math, apparently. His name is Komma. Hello, sir. How you doing?
Hey, doing great.
Yeah, you ready for this?
Yep.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure. 99.99% probability sure.
I mean, hopefully. You've done a lot of math on this, spreadsheets, coordinating stuff over at Altered Time. I'm sure the mage community really appreciates all that. Game-breaking findings, I'm sure. Yeah? I'm sure we'll get into plenty of that during the show. Additionally, we have this gentleman, who apparently has not pulled Mythic Archimon yet. Hi, Turkey.
Yep, not at all. Hello.
Not at all. He's at not dead yet %, right? But hello, sir. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm here to talk about not being a pad lord.
Oh,
Bring
not
down
being
the
a...
pads.
Ooh, that's some shots fired.
Gotta play for the raid.
That's right, man. Apparently, Evan S is pretty good.
Yeah, it's kind of balanced.
Kind of balanced. And then, last but not least, beard competition. Hi, Kuni. What's up, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. I think I'm ready to do this. 3 guest episodes are always a little bit crazy, but hopefully you guys can keep Komma in check, right? I think.
Hopefully.
Oh.
Assuming I keep power?
Oh, that's fair enough.
We'll just hope his math is right.
Oh, we'll just hope his...
Frost questions for Kuni.
Oh,
Everyone.
yeah, that's fine. We'll definitely bring up the Frost questions for you, sir. Absolutely. We'll save all those. Are you guys like... I always kind of find this weird, because in the shaman community, like, Purge and Word Up now, like, do all this math. And then I kind of like, I'm like a little behind the curve and like understanding everything. So are you guys like find what Komma talks about and like you go out in the world and like guinea pig his experiments in number format and see if things work? Is that how it works with you guys?
I think we guinea pig for him, and then he takes logs and
Oh.
finds the answers.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. At least as long as it works like that for other classes, so it's not totally foreign. All right, cool. I want to bring up some general stuff real quick. Not everyone might know who you are on the internet. We'll go back around the same order. Komma, if you want to say like how long you've been playing Mage, what do you do for the Mage community, all that kind of good stuff. Go for it, sir.
Yeah, I've been playing Mage since vanilla. Actually, Komma was my first character, and I've been raiding on and off since vanilla. I'm right now the admin at Altered Time, which is a Mage forum. I also do the simulation craft Mage stuff, like you know, the Mage module or the APL, which means how the sim plays, and I do all sorts of stuff like that.
Damn. How long have you been doing all of that mathy stuff?
I've been doing like the theory part for maybe like a year and a half. We haven't really started that long ago because Ultra Time only just celebrated its 1-year birthday. So
very nice.
Yeah.
Well, happy birthday, sir. Everything you've done there. I know I heard about Ultra Time a while back now, and I was like, I loved finding out, and there's still, everyone might be wondering like, hey, where's the Firelord's favorite page? Yada, yada. I know. There's a lot of art to be done with that. I want to kind of compress and put together where all these different communities are located. And I was really happy to find out, like, after Ravenholt became a thing, and then Ultra Time popped up, I was like, yes, a mage one. So I appreciate all the work you guys do there. Anyone who want to give a shout out to that helps you over at Ultra Time?
Yeah, shout out to all the cool guys there. Dutch, Caver, Frosted, all the staff and mods. We have a pretty big team, so. Oh, and we're recruiting, so if you want to be a mod, just send in an application.
Ooh, that's on the forum, I assume?
Yep.
Very
All you
awesome.
need is username.
Nice. Well, go over to altered-time.com if you want to join the Mage community, of course. We'll be plugging that later on the show again. So, Turkey, your turn. Talk about yourself. Who are you? Hi.
Hey, I'm Turkey. I'm a mage and officer in Midwinter, and I've been playing it since like around the middle of BC. And I've never main swapped besides a couple dips into my Boomkin on fights like Kromog and Gorfiend.
Ah, so pretty faithful to the mage then, huh?
Yep.
When did you start playing mage then?
BC.
Ah, yes. Very good.
Back in Scourge stacking days.
Oh, do you miss it?
No, not at all. That was awful.
Are you sure? Come on now. All those buffs that like the casters brought. Aw.
And
I mean,
10 stack combustion. Oh man.
oof. What the hell was that? All right, Kuni, you're up, sir. Just who the heck are you? And why do you have a great beard?
I'm Kuni, and I've been playing a mage since vanilla. I've been raiding an MS since the very end of Cataclysm, and I've been a frost mage for basically the entire game.
Since when?
The entire game. I've dragged this horrible spec through every level of progression that you can think of.
Oh man. I mean, like, is that like a weird taboo to bring up in the mage community that you've been frost forever? How does that work for you?
I get a lot of shit for it, and that's fine. I don't particularly care one way or another.
Fair enough. I mean, you enjoy it, I assume.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's just I don't particularly enjoy the other two specs, so I play Frost.
What would you play if you weren't playing a mage? Like we're playing a frost mage, I guess I should say.
Probably another game.
Oh man, really? A whole other game?
Yeah, pretty much.
Damn.
I play the elemental casters, and I try and play the frost or the water one.
Oh, okay. So I guess that's like your theme when you play other games too, I assume. It's what you kind of like hearken to. Well, fair enough then. I gotcha. And we of course already said that you guys are guinea pigs. That's fair enough. So then I guess I'll go back around the other way then. I'll go back with you, Kuni. What do you think of Warlords so far? Good, bad, ugly?
I quite enjoy the rating. The storyline, not so much, but, you know, I play for the raids, so I'm enjoying myself.
Fair enough. What do you think, Turkey?
Same thing. Rating's pretty good. Other than that, not too much to do. I've tried to do BGs just for the honor like transmog gear, but it's just too much. Takes too long.
Are you sure? There's a BG weekend right now.
Yeah, but I'm here, man. Can't be doing BGs.
Oh my goodness. You could be. I mean, you could be playing during the show.
Shit.
I wouldn't even know.
Blame Ferdy.
Exactly. What do you think of Warlords so far, Komma?
I think it's okay. Like Kuni and Turkey said, it's mostly about the rating, which is kind of okay because that's what I play mostly for. I'm a little sad that so many guilds didn't survive these two tiers, including my own, which died after Blackrock Foundry, but less rating and then I do more theory stuff, sim or whatever. So it's pretty good.
This has been a very tumultuous expansion. Now, like in every expansion, obviously there have been guilds that have kicked the bucket, but I don't think I remember, maybe I wasn't as connected to like the World of Warcraft like social network as much, but I'm pretty sure Warlords has destroyed or cannibalized or brought down many more guilds than ever, I want to say. Maybe the Mythic change was the big swing for that, but I mean, if you think differently, please. I don't know if I've ever seen. I mean, sometimes there was like a week where like 6 different guilds like just gone.
Yeah. Pretty sure it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just look at the kills from like now compared to Blackrock, Heroic Archimond compared to Heroic Black Inge, way like not as many kills.
Just less overall, yeah.
The amount of time, yep.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been a tier that killed as many guilds as Blackrock Foundry so far.
I mean, like the Boomkin need and Rogue need was pretty paramount. Obviously, the tank balancing at the time was pretty bad. If you played a certain tank and you couldn't like compete, that was probably really rough. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a weird place. So then, from your perspectives, then on Mage, Cataclysm or Mists, the most two recent expansions, was Mage better then, or is it better now with the new Warlords pruning? Turkey, what do you think?
I I wish they would have kept a lot of the abilities that they pruned or like made spec based. That's about it, I think. Just,
Like what
I don't know,
abilities?
like-
What do you?
Well, even just like the AoE abilities, which sure you wouldn't really ever use, but I don't know. I feel like as a mage, you should just have all of your options open and know how to play with everything as every spec.
Yeah, there definitely was some stuff removed. Anything of note that was like removed or pushed over? Because they basically wanted to make Mage like if you're a Fire Mage, you're a Fire Mage. Frost is Frost, and Arcane is Arcane. So they removed like a bunch of like the overlaps of abilities, right? But is it?
Nothing really that big. The only weird one was kind of mirror images, which they made a talent, and it's not
true.
really fit as a talent, in my opinion at least. It was nice for survivability and like even when like soloing stuff. Mostly when soloing stuff.
Right. Do you have
I
anything
miss
else?
Arcane Explosion.
You miss Arcane Explosion.
it's-
It's good
Oh!
for soloing like lobby things. I have to sit down and like ice flows a blizzard in front of me and run through it.
That is true. Yeah, I guess there are certain abilities that are lost. All mages don't have Frost Nova now, do they? Like Fire has Dragon's Breath. They don't have Frost Nova though, do they?
No, you're thinking of Cone of Cold or Dragon's Breath.
Oh, Cone of Cold.
Everyone has
That's
everyone
right.
has Frost Nova, but it's
Okay.
tied to like Supernova, Blast Wave. Like, if you take
Right.
one of Frost Nova.
I guess for the thematically, that definitely helps some stuff out. What do you think, Komma? Better now or better in the past?
I feel like the rating side didn't get changed much, but when you're like playing in the open world or whatever, as a mage, you always wanted to play like you're good at one tree, like you're good at Arcane, you're good at Fire, you're good at Frost, but you still want to have the other options open. Say like an Arcane mage, okay, you get Arcane Explosion, but now you can't do any range AoE. You can't Blizzard, you can't Flame Strike, and that does kind of suck. It doesn't really hurt in rating though.
Just
Even things like things like the armors in PvP was like a nice choice as well. Like going into a matchup,
yeah.
you can know like, hey, do I need Frost armor? Do I need Mage armor? But now you're locked in.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that. I feel like giving Molten Frost and Arcane Mage Armor to each individual spec only, you have no overlap, is kind of a weird thing. But yeah, I'll go with you on that one. Because that feels like you're a little less magey, like you're only a Fire Mage and you only can use Fire spells for like the most part. So
Exactly.
Could use a little bit more tweaking to feel more like you're a mage with a focus on fire, or a mage with a focus on the arcane, instead of being like literally just arcane mage, period. So I get you. Has anything happened going from Mists to Warlords that it's like a super big change for mages though? Was there anything like a big evolution of the mage spec that you guys can think of?
I don't think there was too much of a difference for all three specs. We basically still have the same spells mostly. I mean, we used to all cast Mage Bomb, Living Bomb, Ether Tempest. Those were spec wide, and now it's limited to each spec.
Mhm.
So I guess it's more spec focused now. But the only real big change was Arcane finally actually got a mana control tool. Like you actually burn your mana instead of just staying at 100% mana for the whole fight. And that's the only real big gameplay change. Everything else is, if you played a mage in Mist, then you'll probably know how to play a mage in Warlords.
Right. Yeah, actually, looking at chat right now, Pockets brings up that why do mages not have a choice in armor, but DKs have a choice in presences? But they're never supposed to use them. Yeah. Like, I wonder, like, if you're an arcane mage, obviously your mage armor would be, like, the bee's knees. But maybe if you could use Frost or Molten, but it's, like, a weaker version, but you still have the option. Like, you could still get, like, the Frost armor, like, slow if you're being hit kind of thing. Like, but it's not like if you're a Frost mage, your Frost armor is obviously, like, a lot better than a not Frost mage's Frost armor. You know? Maybe.
Yeah, like even at the end of the siege, I think we were using Frost armor as Arcane, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we were.
What was
The
the
three-
what was the reason for that then?
the three armors used to give three different things. Frost armor gave a haste buff, molten armor gave a crit buff, and mage armor gave a mastery buff. And you could tailor it towards what you wanted to do. Say like fire mages would occasionally use mage armor for their opener just to get bigger combustions because of the mastery. Arcane mages wanted to use frost armor simply because they had so much mastery already. So just haste would get them better DPS. And these were really minor things. Like it was more like an optimization thing. It didn't really feel much unless you were playing in the open world, where the defensive value came into play. Like molten armor reduced physical damage taken.
Right.
Frost armor slowing your enemy. Mage armor reduced time on debuffs applied to you. Like that was where you would feel it more.
Yeah, now I'm getting a conversation back from one of our subs. Gimmick says that the mentality is interesting because the last Mage interview we had back in MOP, the guest said they didn't like that they had access to all the other specs abilities. I guess now it's kind of like you never know if you love something until it's gone kind of effect. So you can kind of feel like what actually works to stay across Mage borders. But then obviously there's certain things that were pruned and feel fine. So, it's very interesting to see how that evolves over like the last 2 years. Yeah. What do you guys think of the DPS ranged hierarchy right now, specifically with tier 18? So kind of go like a little bit back and forth of like, if some people are in chat, you know, and people that listen to the show might never see Mythic. So like where do you see like the breakdown of hunters, warlocks, shadow priests, mages, boomkins, that kind of thing? What do you see from like a math side, Komma? Like what have you found out about like the DPS ranged hierarchy? What do you think?
Currently the range meta in Hellfire right now is all about who can tunnel those targets the best, like who can kill Infernos the best, who can kill these priority targets the best. And there's also a lot of movement. Almost every single fight requires you running around a lot. So if I were to make a hierarchy, I would probably put hunters up at the top simply because they can do so much. And like marksman does a lot of single target damage. But after that, I think Arcane and Frost, because of their single target and their cleave, actually I would put them at least on par, if not better than all the other options, except for Boomkin, who has a niche in just multi-dotting everything, Starfall all day. Shadow Priests also have a little bit of that, but their multi-dotting is more like things need to not die as fast. So yeah, I would say we're in a pretty good spot, just behind Hunters.
Yeah. That's the weird thing about Hunters. I remember talking about Hunter stuff in the beta for Warlords when they had Blizzard openly stated that Hunters will not have as many movement penalties because they're very movement-oriented range DPS class, but their damage should never, like on a patchwork fight, be way up there. They should excel on fights where other casters are moving too much, or they kind of like fill that hole. I'm not exactly sure that stayed. Hunters are kind of like really good at standing still and really good at movement. So have you seen anything like that from your perspective doing all the mythic stuff, Turkey? Like where you find, I mean, from Midwinter standpoint of view, like are you just like hunters everywhere? You know, like what do you guys do?
Yeah.
Oh, is it really? Damn it. Yeah.
Hunters are pretty insane, but overall I'd say we're pretty good. Better off in like the back end of the instance, like once you get to stuff like just past like Gorefiend and Hellfire Assault, Council, everything like that. All those type of fights like Shadow Priest, Boomkin will all shine on, just because we don't have the type of abilities to work around multi-dot, or like you need like say like Shadow Burn or something like that, just to be able to take out a target. Overall, I think we're in a good place.
But you're not
we're really good at dealing with mechanics.
You guys haven't seen like a lot of, because I know Midwinter's roster is a little different than other guilds, but you guys aren't like finding you need to like change up any range classes and like replace them for another one specifically, or have you guys kind of have like the same sort of roster going all the way through?
Basically use the same roster going through. The only thing I'd say that would be good is like another Warlock, but that's just I guess a whole nother story.
I'm sure the ranged casters in the chat right now love that W word. It's been kind of a buzzword since Burning Crusade. That's what the expansion was. Yes.
The only fight I'd really say like 3 mages is insanely good on would be Zoharak, and that's because Evanesce.
And why is that exactly? Like, it's the soaking of the dots and stuff, or?
Yeah, the empowered chains you just would remove from the whole fight because it picks the farthest, like, it picks one of the 3 furthest, I want to say. And if you have an S or immune it just won't happen at all. If you immune the cast.
Interesting, those abilities. So.
And it's a short enough cooldown where it's up, like, I think every other time. Sometimes it's up for every single one if he does, like, a weird delay.
Yeah, I mean, Evanescence is sort of like a more powerful version of Cloak, only because it's on a ranged caster, and certain ranged abilities, like that one specifically, can be used. Like, you can't have a rogue stand out there and bait the effect, because, like, what's the rogue doing? Shuriken toss?
Yeah.
So, like, could, yeah. I'm sorry, rogues, I didn't mean it. But then has that changed from your perspective then, Kuni? Because you've been just, like, Frost for, like, forever. Like, have you seen that you, like, have had these pits and valleys where you felt like you're, like, struggling? Like,
Yeah, definitely. See, my guild, like, I'm not raiding with people who are playing at the top of their game all the time.
Sure.
I'm playing with people who, 70% percentile, right? That's what the average is. So I can keep up with them, but I'm usually not where a mage should be. So it can kind of cause some issues. I know we had a sub 200k blackhand wipe, and that's definitely on me not playing Arcane.
Yeah, I guess you can feel those things. I mean, you still kill stuff, though. I guess not.
Oh,
only
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I don't think there's ever been a... I think melee have a bit more of a up and down pattern right now. Mostly because you can fit more ranged in a raid. Because you're definitely not taking, like, 9 melee to encounters in Mythic. That would be weird. But... yeah, I can definitely feel how that sounds good, at least, that the mage, the range DPS meta isn't, like, way in favor of one class over another. I know that when Fox was a thing, it was a little different. Do you guys have anything you want to say about, do you miss Fox? Do you think it was a good thing to the game, bad thing to the game? You glad it's gone?
I feel like Fox, like removing Fox was the right decision, because Fox was just this ability that if you had a really organized group and you had the right casters, like Mage, like let's not even beat around the bush. Mage was pretty overpowered in Blackrock Foundry. If you had enough of that kind of class to take advantage of Fox, then, and you had an organized enough group to chain Foxes perfectly, then it would just be ridiculous. You just do amazing. But Fox is weird because if your group is not as organized, like if you go to any pug, then it's just a dead button. There's no time you can possibly use it where everyone is going to make good use of it. And people need to track it, and it just gets really complicated.
Yeah.
I don't think it changed too much of the meta, but I do think that the Fox is a big part of range. Has always been about who can have the most casting time, who can make most efficient use of their time.
Yeah.
And Fox really circumvents part of that. It just makes it less punishing when you have to move, and you don't need to think as much when you have to. When you can cast it, when you cannot.
I still kind of wonder if they could have just went like the heroism bloodlust route with Fox instead of removing it completely. Like, why couldn't Fox still exist, but just have like a 3-minute back end, you can't use it again thing because you have a debuff? Like, so you could still have like a phase or 2 in a fight on average where you could actually still use that little bit of movement speed on the go. Or do you still think just removing it entirely was just better?
I'm okay with either. Like,
yeah.
Fox was just a weird button because the hunters themselves never really knew when to use it if it was on their own.
Right.
They didn't benefit from it. And they also didn't feel anything from it. And, I mean, mages, we had the same issue, except Amplified Magic mattered so much less. Whether you use it or not, who cares?
Yeah, I guess, what do you think, Turkey? Putting you on the spot here.
I think it's really good that it's gone. Like, even if it was here, I don't think it would be insanely good on any of the fights. Maybe, yeah, like, there's just not really that many uses for it. Like, sure, Warlords, you could use it on, like, a Seed, something like that, or Tyrant in the last phase, but I think they did a good job of catering around not having it.
Well, yeah, but definitely, they redesigned the game for not having it. Whereas, obviously, they had it in mind when they made stuff for BRF and Highmall. So, it's changed the design scope. As a Lottie amuses that you need Fox for the Twisting Nether phase on Mythic Archimond. But I still just wonder if it should have been that way. Like, because now hunters have, like, deterrence soaking on mechanics. And so maybe add kiting? Is that enough, I guess? Maybe? Possibly? You know?
I think they have enough.
Yeah. That's the one I wonder about. How much utility should a class bring? Like, one or two things is enough? I think that might be the good thing. I don't know, maybe it was too much bloat. On the flip side, do you miss not having amp magic, boys?
No, not at all.
No? That's a resounding no. No?
With amp magic, it's like the strongest way you can possibly use amp magic is when you combine it with, say, a really strong healing cooldown, him, trank. But the thing is, the difference between whether a trank is used with an amp, like the difference between trank with an amp and trank without an amp is so small that you really don't feel it. The difference between using a trank and not using a trank is gigantic. So, what real benefit are we getting out there if we're just comboing with a CD and we don't even feel anything strong about it?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day when amp magic and dampen magic were both a thing. They were a single target buff that would either increase magic damage incoming, so you increase healing but also take more damage, or you can decrease healing incoming and decrease magic damage taken. And that was like, God, was that Burning Crusade? And Wrath?
Wrath too, yeah.
Wrath and Burning Crusade.
There's 3 extensions.
That's kind of what I thought amp should have actually been dampen, where it's like an old school, like what Devo Aura used to be, but then they just buffed Devo Aura when they removed amp, and now Devo Aura works on physical and magic damage. Which again puts more power on healing cooldowns being what you should be balancing your raid around. So even though there's that back end of when certain DPS can't bring any raid utility, and you're not rogues or warriors or DKs, you know, it kind of, why do you bring the other ones like enhancement shamans and feral druids? Maybe a little bit, I don't know. It's a weird place. So the transition from tier 17 out of the furnace and tier 18 now into the green sludge. How is, like, the mage inner balance worked out now? Because as a pure DPS class, you're sort of always, like, one of my 3 specs right now is garbage. Like, as rogues, they felt that for forever. For Warlock, same thing. Has that been... What has happened for mages? What do you think, Turkey? Like, were you, like, 2 mage specs and you never played the 3rd one, but now you can play all 3? Or do you still only play 2? Like, how has that changed in tier 18 now?
For Blackrock, it was mostly just play Arcane or Fire, and then going into tier 18, it's just all about Arcane and Frost, where Arcane is more of like, hey, if you get good Doomnova, then you're set, but if not, then you should probably just be playing Frost, depending on the fight. I think they've done a pretty good job. Just obviously, like, we kind of talked about this before, but Fire is still good, it's just not good in the fights that are in this current tier. Like, you don't think of any sustained AoE type of like fights or sustained like 5-target cleave, anything like that.
Right. Is that a good balance to have?
I think so, yeah. I think it's like, it's fine for a pure DPS class to have a spec that's good in certain scenarios, in my opinion.
You have something to add, Komma?
Yeah, it's really weird because when we started the expansion, we had this weird tri-spec thing where in High Mall, I guess we need to dial back the time a little further. In MoP, it was all about Arcane and Fire. And as we got more geared, Fire just got stronger and stronger, and like, Frost was sort of forgotten. It was okay in Siege of Orgrimmar, but like it just fell off. When we went into Warlords, Blizzard thought, well, we need to give each of the mage specs identities. So they nerfed Fire single target damage in a hotfix, by the way. And let's be clear, Fire single target damage, if there weren't any gimmicks, since the start of Warlords, has always been lower than the other 2 specs. This is assuming no weird set bonuses or whatever. We'll cover that later.
Sure.
They made it so Fire became this mass AoE spec. And the only way the AoE works is if you're attacking sustained stack high number of targets. So Blast Furnace, Thogar to a certain extent, that kind of fight really worked. Oh, Imperator too. Arcane got buffed a lot, and became a single target turret.
Right.
Frost niche was 2-target cleave, but it couldn't keep up in Blackrock Foundry because of weak set bonuses and just bad fights in general.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Kuni can talk more about that in a moment. In Tier 18, Fire didn't actually get any real nerfs. There was like a tiny slap on the wrist nerf, but the biggest change was just the crutch that was the set bonus got taken away. So it just went back to its original form, exactly how it was in Heimdall. Good on AoE, not good on anything else. But there's no AoE, like mass AoE fight in Hellfire Citadel. There's no Blast Furnace. There's no... That kind of fight doesn't exist, and that's why Fire fell off, and now it's all Arcane and Frost.
Yeah, it's... I mean, is that fine to have that? I mean, as a hybrid, like I feel this internally in my own like talents and how I can attune myself to an encounter. But as a pure DPS, like is it good to have like this single target turret monster, this mass AoE monster, and then a good like movement oriented like 2 to 3 target cleave spec? Like you can really tailor yourself to whatever you want. That's how a pure DPS should be, right? Like, couldn't you feel that there are periods of time when you should have went the other specs, but you just play Frost, you just enjoy it the most? Whereas, like, is that how the 3 mage specs sort of like lay themselves out now?
Yeah, more or less. I have rarely swapped specs for when it is actually better for progression. We need that damage. But for the most part, it's just like encounter designs don't favor all 3 of them at the same time.
Sure.
And you end up with, especially at the beginning of the expansion, Frost's Iceland's cleave range was incredibly tiny. It's like you could have Twin Ogre almost standing on top of each other and wouldn't cleave. So the one fight that Frost should have been really great on, it was terrible.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
it's...
I understand that. What was the cleave range used to be on Iceland's Icicles, and what is it now?
It was like, it was 10 yards in Siege, like combat reach of mob plus 10 yards. Then it got nerfed to combat reach plus 2.
Ooh,
and I believe it's...
What?
is it 8 yards now, Komma?
I think it went from 10 to 5, and now it's 8. I'm not
no,
sure.
It was 2 at one
like that.
Okay, that's
yeah, it might have been
terrible.
Yeah, I think so. It's the same as the Hunter Chimera shot cleave. You know, they made they did a lot of bitching about that. It's the same problem.
Okay.
Yep.
So I guess that's... And I guess, does that work, though? I mean, from your perspective, then, Turkey, is that good to have the option as a mage to not only have mage utility with, like, Ice Block, Evanesce now and stuff like that, but also have, like, you can really spec yourself out from a fight-to-fight basis? I guess that comes into a gear problem at some point, but does that work well?
I like it. Just, like... It gives you the options rather than being, oh, hey, I have to play this one spec for every single fight. I'm never going to change. I'm never going to have to mess with my enchants or anything. I just log in, good to go. And, like, even fights like Zorak, you could say, like, oh, hey, we need more interrupts on these imps. Okay, I'll go Dragon's Breath. Okay, we need, like, or, like, something like Supernova. Whereas if you were just to play one spec, you're, like, the options are already picked for you.
Fair enough. So how about the fire issue right now with like the reliance on crit? This came in as a message and I want to make sure we address little things like this. Is there too much crit that's bad for fire? Like right now when we're getting higher and higher eye levels, if people want to still play fire, like do you never want to get to a certain amount of crit, or does it not matter?
It doesn't matter. There is no amount of crit you can reach which you stop stacking crit. The only exception you don't want to get too much crit is you don't want to use 2 crit trinkets. So don't take, let's say, Goran's Soul Repository and the Crafted Inscription trinket. That would actually put you above cap. Otherwise, it's impossible to reach the crit cap, because the crit cap is something like 80% before all the other, critical mass, whatever, all of those count in. The issue with fire isn't about crit as much as it is just about the spell coefficients. What happened was, in the pre-patch 6.0, everything was tuned for level 100, and when it was live, people were playing 6.0 Siege of Orgrimmar, and fire mages became monsters. They did literally double the damage of everyone else because they scaled so much better. And with Siege of Orgrimmar gear, they had 100% mastery, 100% everything. It's crazy. So Blizzard saw that and they said, well, that can't work. We're going to cut you by 20% on every single spell. And that happened around mid-October. When Warlords launched, this hotfix was not reverted. And for the first 3 weeks, the story was that even 14 out of 14 heroic mages weren't able to complete Proving Grounds on gold if they were playing fire. That was how bad it was.
Wah.
Yes, it was that bad. So when High Mall Mythic came out, Blizzard said, well, this isn't going to work. This spec is going to go extinct. And Watcher was quoted as saying 96% of all raiding mages were Frost. There was basically nobody was playing anything else. So they buffed Arcane, they buffed Fire, and the way they buffed Fire wasn't by buffing their spell damage. Instead, what they did was, we're going to give you a free 15% crit. We're going to give you 10% more base crit. We're going to give you like a crit buff to Molten Armor and all that.
Yeah.
And so Fire Mages got the crit they needed to play a smooth rotation to get their procs and all that, but they never actually hit that hard. And this was never fixed, and that's why, until this day, their spell damage is still relatively low. They only work on multi-target. This is a change. Like, this is the result of a change since all the way back in October last year. So it's not about not getting enough crit. And honestly, you'll never really get enough crit if you're not running crit trinkets. Which, by the way, there are no crit trinkets in Hellfire Citadel, and that's another big reason why Fire is falling behind.
Yeah, that sounds like... I mean, that's like the next point that's on here, or like, our encounter is just not designed to benefit Fire's playstyle. And that's sort of what I feel too. Like, Enhancement Shamans was like all about burst damage. Burst single target, burst, crazy burst in Siege. And then everything changed in Warlords when the Fire Nation check. I mean, when we went to Fire Nova, and everything was like, we're great at like multi-target, sustained, long periods of AoE. And that was like Mythic Imperator and like Tectus, and it mattered. But like, there's nothing like that, like we said before, that's even in this raid in Hellfire Citadel now. So all of a sudden, like, what we're balanced for just becomes like... So that will happen to Fire, I suppose, in that same regard? Like, there's no reason to play it if fights don't...
It's the same story as last episode when Purge said, enhancement doesn't work when there's no stacked AoE. Well, the exact same statement works for Fire. Fire doesn't work when there's no stacked AoE. There's no Tectus in this tier, so that's the problem.
Right. So I guess the differences in the three specs that factor in balance... I mean, like we said before, I mean, Frost is just really good at that 2-ish to 3 target cleave. Obviously, has very good mobility, right? Probably the best of the 3 mage specs, I assume, mobility-wise. Granted, all the mages can take Ice Flow, so you can all kind of move and cast on the move. But, I mean, you can Ice Lance on the move, and your icicles are going off. And Arcane, obviously, is this incredibly good turret. And right now in Hellfire Citadel, there's priority targets, and then there's the boss. And all the priority targets... take much more priority over the boss. So Arcane is good for that. So yeah, there's really no reason to be AoEing as a ranged DPS. Do you guys feel that? Like Turkey, I bring this up on the show the last couple episodes, that it feels like the AoE and cleave can be taken care of by your melee. Except maybe on like Soccer Thar. And is that sort of how it is? Like, does your melee take care of the AoE and the cleave, and all your casters and ranged DPS kind of tunnel priority targets?
Yeah, overall, I just think melee has better AoE outside of, say, Warlocks, and they're already all set up for them when you take in AoE grip, so they're already there, everything's right in front of them, they just have to press their buttons.
Right. And then the casters just kind of focus on what needs to die.
Yep, like Void Fiends, or like taking care of, say, like Constructs on Gorefiend, stuff like that.
Right. I mean, the only fight, depending on how you do the fight, like I guess Soccer Thar, because you gotta kill the ghosts. And obviously ranged... kill the ghosts. It's only like AoE ranged fight I can think of. People might bring up like Hellfire Salt Bay. That's a trash boss. Doesn't exist. Chat room, don't be naughty. Don't be naughty. If you're killing heroic bosses right now and you haven't gone into Mythic and then the first 2 bosses in Mythic yet, those bosses are easier than Heroic Archimond. So please go get your free Mythic loots. All right, we'll jump into some math stuff now. That's enough of the general stuff. So we're gonna go through these in order. Each time we do this, it's gonna be kind of a Fire, Frost, Arcane, back and forth. We're gonna bring up what the stats of the Tri-Mage spec care about. So Fire is up first. So your mastery is Ignite, which your targets burn for an additional XX percentage of damage over 5 seconds of the total direct damage caused by Fireball, Frost Firebolt, Inferno Blast, Scorch, Pyroblast, Flame Strike, and their multi-strikes. And if the effect, of course, is reapplied, the remaining damage just rolls into the new Ignite. And then Incineration, which is your attunement now, which was the 5%, and then got boosted up to the Band-Aided fix to 15%, more crit from all sources. So, Komma, what is like the layout for what Fire Mages aim for if you're still playing Fire right now? Like, what's the stat hierarchy?
First, I'd like to make a small correction.
Sure.
Frost Fireball is no longer usable by Fire Mages. It's now
Right.
a Frost thing.
That's still on your tooltip, though. That's what.
Yeah,
it is.
Yep.
It's kind of sad, but yeah.
So I want to bring that up
Anyway.
on purpose. Yep. Go ahead.
Fire Mages, actually all mages in general really want their attunement stat, and it doesn't even really have anything to do with the attunement. The mechanics just favor getting it. So Fire right now is crit, 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 some more crit, crit over it, crit over everything else. And then when you're done with, stacking every slot with crit, get some mastery, and then afterwards is a mix of haste and multi-strike, and last of all is versatility. Fire is, I would say, one of the only hyper-scaling specs in the game. It's almost exponential gain with the secondaries. Most classes, and actually this was also mentioned by Purge last time, the only reason a class would want versatility is if your scaling is crap and you have some serious problems. Fire does not have this problem. It's on the other extreme end. Crit is, I think, more than double the worth of versatility. In fact, versatility is by far the worst stat. In tier 18, crit is even stronger than intellect. And
Ugh, that's so weird when you
Yeah.
say stuff like that. Some classes have that right now, and that's just, ugh.
yeah, the only difference from tier 17 is in tier 17, because of the set bonuses, crit was a little bit devalued. It was still top if you wanted to play Fire for everything, but since we're only playing it for AoE, you want mostly Mastery.
Okay.
And that's why people who played Arcane and Fire could just use Mastery for both. Now, though, we don't even have a crit trinket anymore, and we don't have the set bonuses anymore. You just want crit for everything. And if anything, the set bonuses make you want crit even more, because it's based off of Pyroblast, which is, something you get when you crit more.
Sure. I mean, it's pretty definitive, I guess. And it sounds like at least it makes you value a certain amount of stats, even though the crit over int thing is very weird. I kind of feel like your primary actual stat, like your white stat, your int, your agility, your strength, should always kind of be the best, because they increase everything. And that's kind of rough that the class is balanced so heavily around the crit rating meta that might need some tweaking in 7.0. But
It probably will, but I don't know if there's any good way to even fix this, because the problems with why Fire Mages want crit, which is tied into Pyroblast, and Pyroblast being a spell that hits 4 or 5 times harder than everything else, there's no way you're ever going to make it less desirable. You need a real overhaul of the spec, and then that's not even including other effects such as combustion, which adds on to the scaling. So we would actually need an overhaul before we can fix this hyper scaling issue.
right. We'll have to see, but that's not too terribly sounding. I mean, crit stacking is what you do. I guess not too terribly difficult to realize, but that sort of changes now. Frost Mastery. We're moving to Frost Mage right now. Looking at Icicles. Damaging enemies with Frostbolt or Frost Firebolt and their multi-strikes. XX% of the damage is stored as an icicle over your head for 30 seconds. It also increases the damage done by your Water Elementals, Water Bolt, and Water Jet by XX%. Up to 5 icicles can be stored at once, and casting an Ice Lance causes any icicles to begin launching at the target. And then the attunement for Frost Mage is Ice Shards. You get 5% more multi-strike from all stat sources. So, Kuni, break Frost Mage down for me. What kind of stat layouts do you want, and how does your attunement and mastery work, sir?
Well, as with Fire, you want your attuned stat. You want multi-strike because Brain Freeze procs from that. It's instant chance to have a free instant Frost Firebolt, which hits like a truck on top of a damage bonus to that same spell. Icicles then just being pretty weak once you get the tier bonus. But so oh god, how do we do that?
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's so icicles are probably about a quarter of your cleave before you get the tier bonus. Up until you get your tier bonus for this tier, it's a great stat. It's like second or third depending on your other how much you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, stat weights fucking move around. So once you get tier 18, you have so many ice lances which are not affected by mastery, that mastery just tanks and goes below versatility. It's kind of a really annoying setup. Versatility should not be higher, I'd think, but anyway, haste and crit, pretty generic, because you still want to cast faster, obviously. You're going to get more procs, and then your procs scale with crit. We don't have any weird and wonderful, hey look, fire just goes crazy with crit.
Right,
it's sure. You have probably 70 to 80% of intellect, like worth per point, is where multi-strike sits, and then crit is just a hair underneath it.
Okay.
Haste being a little bit further below that, and then again, versatility sitting so low, but still better than mastery when you have your set bonus.
Yeah, it's weird because you bring up the whole, chat might be confused about the whole versatility thing, is the fact that versatility is flat damage, but your mastery only affects Frostbolt, Frost Firebolt, and their multi-strikes. It has nothing to do with Ice Lance and Icicles. That's why versatility with your set bonuses now, and obviously with your even in some way, I guess, your Archimon trinket, like you don't even like
Definitely.
Mastery doesn't benefit what then gets amplified, but versatility does.
Yeah. So you end up having like a quarter to a third of your damage just pure Ice Lance, and mastery does nothing for that.
Yeah. But hey, it makes your water elemental do more damage.
Oh boy.
By the way,
what?
By the way, what, Komma?
It didn't even affect all of water elemental damage until 6.2.
What? Excuse me? Pardon me?
Would you want to expand on that, Kuni?
So it actually didn't impact Water Jet at all until 6.2. It was just Water Bolt, which had a very interesting point of making Water Jet, compared to Water Bolt, like ignoring the proc generation off of it, a DPS loss to cast. So suddenly we're looking at, oh, that's double the duration of this. Okay, now it's really a DPS loss to cast. And now it's like, oh, we're going to make it last 14 seconds now. All right. So put it on mastery, please.
Yeah.
Or else the water elemental is just going to be a huge DPS loss.
That's rough. But it is fixed now, you said.
It is fixed now, so it's a great set bonus, and yeah, mastery is still garbage.
No, well, there's that. Anything else on Frost that you wanted to add, Komma? I don't know if you had anything to throw out there.
Yeah. Frost stats are really annoying and really complicated. The main thing is, if you think about all the core spells across all three specs, Fire, Arcane, and Frost, there are only 2 spells in the entire toolkit that don't benefit from every single secondary. The first one is Inferno Blast from Fire Mages, which always crits, so more crit doesn't do anything. Doesn't matter, it hits like a truck anyway. The other one is Ice Lance. That's a real problem. It doesn't benefit from mastery. It doesn't generate its own icicles. I think it really should, but we can get on that later. The problem is, we have the tier bonus. The last tier bonus gave us a bunch of Ice Lance procs. I mean, Wings of Frost. This tier bonus gave us even more than that. Like, the normal single target, you maybe cast like 9 a minute. But once you get the tier 18 bonus, you cast something like 15 a minute. That's almost double. And as if that wasn't enough, you get the class trinket. The class trinket just basically doubles your Ice Lance damage.
Yeah.
So suddenly a huge amount of your damage, something like 40% or even more on cleave fights, doesn't care about mastery. So what used to be your second best stat, or even the best stat at some point, because of the buffs to Frost Firebolt in this patch, goes all the way to the bottom and becomes your very worst stat, because it doesn't buff half of what you do.
I mean, obviously, I kind of like see from the back end standpoint that obviously everything can't benefit everything. But then that just runs into player frustration when set bonuses and trinkets come into play that change how classes work. So I guess I understand from the first, you can't, if mastery affected your Ice Lance as well, and Ice Lance made its own icicles, you just basically just Ice Lance all day. And you'd have Ice Lance and icicles flying all day, you'd be like this railgun mage. You'd be like a Dragon Ball Z character with ice. Which sounds cool, but obviously it has to be a little bit of give and take, I guess. But that does sound, from a player perspective, obviously a little frustrating.
I argue that it's, like, benefiting everything is kind of okay, though, because that's what happens for every other spell in, like, all three specs. And if anything, Ice Lance not benefiting from mastery is one of the biggest reasons why, towards the end of every single expansion, Frost slowly falls off, because you have one dead stat.
Yeah. Yeah.
But maybe we'll see some changes in 7.0.
Maybe. All right, Turkey. Didn't forget about you. Chat room's been saying it. I'm going to break down Arcane real quick.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Here it comes. So, Mastery is Mana Adept, which increases all spell damage done by up to an XX%. And based on the amount of mana the mage has unspent. Now, there's some hidden, like, actual values that you can bring up. Like, people might get confused about where the actual fall-offs for the double integer percentage bonus happens. I think the attunement is Arcane Mind. You get 5% more mastery stat from all sources. Pretty simple. What's the stat layout for Arcane Mages, Turkey? And how does that interaction work and stuffs?
Once you get tier, everything just kind of goes bonkers. So I think Komma will have like tons of info on this, but basically, since your pets, they just have like, they have some weird delay where, for whatever reason, haste brings down that delay. So after you get two-piece, or yeah, basically two-piece, you just want to go full out haste until, I don't know, just some like crazy amount, like to the point where unless you have like full haste gear, you should be fine. So just for like overall stat like breakdown, once you get tier, it'd be, I think, haste mastery, then multi-strike, and then crit verse. Am I missing anything? I don't think so. That's basically it.
And then what is the Arcane, the mastery though overall, the mana depth thing, where you gain full amount of mastery, is it at 100% mana? Doesn't it have like fall-offs where your mastery gets weaker based off of mana at certain points though? It's not a flat arbitrary 100% to 0% directly affects the bonus, right?
I think it used to have like weird breakpoints, but it doesn't anymore.
Okay.
Do you know, Komma?
Yeah, it's just a like a straight line. 100% get all of your mastery. 0% mana, you get none of your mastery.
Does it actually go to 0%, or is there a base value of mastery built in?
No, 0%. Like if you, for some reason, I don't know, maybe you're doing General Vizax from Alduar who drains all your mana.
Okay.
And suppose you can cast a spell at 0 mana, then mastery would be a dead stat. It would do nothing for you.
Okay, fair enough. And was Turkey right on his math there for the stat layouts for Arcane?
Yeah, Arcane is really weird. Also really weird. Arcane's default, and like for everyone who doesn't have full tier 18, has always been mastery is the top stat, and then haste, crit, multi-strike, versatility. It's almost the same. But once you get your tier 18, haste overtakes mastery. And the reason is, as Turkey said, the tier bonus, the 2-tier bonus, tier 18 bonus for Arcane, is you summon a bunch of pets, and by pets I mean temporal heroes, Tyrande, Sylvanas, Arthas, you know, all that noise they're making. Sorry guys, it's all us.
Yep, it
is.
You
see all those people standing around trying to confuse you, thinking you're not spreading out properly? Yeah, that's also us.
Yep.
And the problem is, pets don't benefit from mastery because it only affects your own spells. So the more pets you have, the more damage they do, the more bad mastery is. The second problem with the tier bonus is, well, how do you do more pet damage? Aside from them hitting more often, which you get more haste to do that, you just summon more of them. And the way to summon more of them is you cast more spells. Cast more spells means you want more haste. So that's like 2 ways of making them gain from haste. And as if that weren't enough, the 4-piece bonus also gives you a damage buff, which is dependent on how many pets you get.
Yep.
So how do you get more buffs? Well, cast more spells, stack more haste. So it's haste all day, every day, once you get your tier 18 bonus. But before that, it's still the normal mastery, haste, and yeah. Afterwards, it's only the top 2 switch around.
It's weird when, because it's set bonus, the extra damage you gain from your set trumps the bonus you get from mastery, because mastery obviously fluctuates based off your mana pool, whereas the 12% damage you get for your 4-piece having each pet out is just flat damage. And I'm not gonna like spoil that surprise. We'll get to that in a minute when we break down set bonuses. But so we'll fly it back over to Fire Mage again then, to break down the raiment of the Arcanic Conclave. Yep. So we'll do fire real quick then. 2-piece fire is Pyroblast, a 24% chance to conjure a fiery phoenix, dealing fire damage to the target. You're like a little mini Kael'thas. And then your 4 pieces, when your phoenix is summoned, you gain 6% spell damage and 6% spell haste for 15 seconds. Can you have multiple at the same time? And does the phoenix buff like stack up? Like you have multiple phoenixes giving the same buff, or is it one buff, one phoenix at a time? How's that work, Komma?
The first thing is the phoenix is not actually a pet. The phoenix is just when you land a spell, you see a phoenix fly from you towards the target. It's just like a spell. So there's no actual pet lying around. The second thing is the buff. It doesn't stack. It just refreshes, and it doesn't extend it or anything. So you just want to make sure you get a phoenix every 15 seconds, so you can get as much of the buff as possible. But you can, because it's a random proc. So it's just RNG whether or not you get it. That said, it's still pretty good. If you are active for an entire fight, the buff is up for 50-60% of the time. So it's it's pretty good.
It sounds pretty substantial, I guess. Not enough to make like fire jump way up the ladder there, but they're thematic and pretty straightforward buffs. I mean, there's a theme with all of these sets, which I'll bring up now, is that all of the sets are just RNG oriented. So, which is good and bad, I guess, for player skill interaction, but also like frustrating because they're not like, they can happen and then like not happen ever. Do they have like built-in RPPM protection at all? Or like can you get like 5 phoenixes an entire fight, or you can get like 15?
You can get 5 or 15. There's no RPPM in this.
Ugh. Gross. That's awful.
The best thing about it is that it looks cool. And if you get a multi-strike, you get a bunch of baby phoenixes following the first one.
You guys get your phoenixes, you get your cool, we'll get into the arcane one here in a minute with your pets. I get cool thunder farts, and they nerf it to the ground, and the effect is gone. What the hell, Blizzard? The effect...
It's okay. We have our Frost own broken issues. We can talk about
we'll get into those in a moment. So for fire mages then, out of the 5 pieces, what piece do you off slot?
The off slot is most likely the Arcane hat. It's crit and mastery, which are 2 stats you really want. Of course, the problem being you can't get an Arcane hat until you kill him. And if you kill Mythic Arcane, progression's over. I'm not actually sure what's the second piece you should use. I haven't looked into it yet. Yeah. But speaking of the set bonus, it's really good. It's like 6 to 7% per set bonus. Both are pretty good. You don't want to keep your previous set bonuses over. And to make some clarifications, the Phoenix is not an AoE spell. It just hits a target, and it just hits that one, a single target.
Right. It's literally like a multi-strike.
Yes, it is.
It really is. Like when you Pyroblast and you have like little multi-strike Pyroblasts off of them, one of them could be a Phoenix. Yeah, fair enough. All right, Frost Mage time. Are you ready? Ready, Kuni? Ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Hopefully I won't stutter again, yeah.
Oh, you're fine. The internet thing, thunderstorm, not a big deal. So your 2-piece as a Frost Mage right now, Water Jet generates Brain Freeze when used. When used on the cast. And Brain Freeze effect increases Frost Firebolt's damage by an additional 20%. Your 4 pieces when the duration of Water Jet has now been increased by 10 seconds, so it lasts 14. Increases your total Fingers of Frost stacks by 2. From 2 to 4 in total then. I mean, they look like straightforward. Like, compared to the other two, you control this. You get an arbitrary bonus on your Water Jet and your Fingers of Frost, and then your Frost Firebolt whenever your Water Jet does more damage. But what are the problems, Kuni?
Well, the problems, oh boy. How about the fact that changing it from plus 4 seconds to plus 10 on Water Jet was done like 12 hours before live, and absolutely none of us had any idea how to play this. So we're sitting here scrambling to get something coherent for 6.2, and it's just an absolute mess. Mm. So, because like there was logic to it at plus 4. You know, you've doubled Water Jet's duration, therefore you're going to get double the Frost Bolts into it, and then they increase the Fingers of Frost stacks from 2 to 4. That makes logical sense. They kept the stacks at 4, and then changed it to plus 10. So it became kind of a very odd thing where it wasn't really obvious how to play it. We were experimenting with stacking it to 4 and then using them instantly. But what ended up working was just Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Frostbolt, Ice Lance, cast a Frost Firebolt whenever you get a second stack.
So it looks like, to jump ahead to some degree now because we're talking about Frost Mage in tandem with it, the Arcane trinket is when you Ice Lance cast immediately following a Frost Bolt, the Ice Lance deals more damage.
Yeah, that's a majority of why you're doing back and forth on the 2 spells.
Yeah. So like, does the Frost rotation just become, it's just Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Frostbolt, Ice Lance, and if you ever get an extra stack, that's when you put the Frost Firebolt in there?
Yeah, because Water Jet, when it starts the cast, gives you a Frost Firebolt proc as per the 2 piece. So as soon as you get your second stack, you want to use it because that 20% buff does make Frost Firebolt very good.
It's just lots of weaving.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does sound like it's very much like a 1-2, 1-2, 1-3-2 kind of thing.
Pretty much.
Overall. Which I guess is fluid, but is...
Boring.
Boring is the word?
And, boring, and like, how do you deal with a target swap? Do you save that Water Jet to, dump into the off target? I think we're currently working with continue to throw Frostbolts at primary target and then like go over and throw Ice Lances over there.
Well, the Ice Lance, because you Ice Lance that one target, will all your Icicles go to that target you use Ice Lance then?
Yeah.
As a target swap thing?
Yes.
Okay. There's also a problem with Water Jet right now. Not actually water jetting.
Oh, the animation, yeah. So, yeah, it's specifically set for like, I think it's 4.5 seconds of Water Jet, at which point it stops and then just starts up again. And then the Elemental's arm actually gets tired and he just drops his arm at, I think it's 10 seconds in. And so there's 4 seconds where he's just kind of standing there doing nothing and water's shooting out of his hand.
That's a small, minor thing, I guess, but that also must look kind of weird. Like, if you're looking for like a cue to know what's happening, like, he just stopped it but then started it again, but that doesn't actually recast it because it's already still happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of weird. So they buffed the duration, but they didn't actually fix the animation timing. But I guess straight. What's up?
I was gonna say, I was surprised that's an ability that they left for like everybody in the raid able to see, just because it's so like not really distracting, but it's just there. It's just a beam going straight to the boss.
Yeah,
like,
it is
every 12 seconds.
It is true. Yeah, we still see outside of that. Yeah, I still see Water Jet. Yep. So offset piece for your 4 set for tier team. What's the offset piece, Kuni?
Zul'Harak's hat, because multi-strike.
Ah, Zul'Harak's hat. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys say hat?
The Arcane hat is mastery heavy, and it's just, well, we've been over mastery being absolute shit right now.
Right.
So Zul'Harak's hat is multi-strike heavy with haste secondary. And
okay.
That's probably just the best stat layout you can find right now on an off piece.
Sounds pretty good. All right, Turkey, we're back to you. Do Arcane Mages now.
Oh boy.
Your 2 set for Arcane Mages is your Arcane Missile Cast. Has a 35% chance to create a time anomaly, which summons a random hero through time to assist you in battle for 10 seconds. It could be Tyrande, Jaina, Arthas. They say
Sylvanas.
things too. Sylvanas, yeah. Each hero summoned by the time anomaly for your 4-piece increases the damage that you deal by 12% until it departs. Before I let you go through all this stuff, Komma, the 12%, it's additive for each individual mob that spawns, right? It's just really easy math, right, mages?
No, it's not. For some odd reason, they decided to make each pet apply their own buff, and it doesn't stack additively, it stacks multiplicatively. So what I mean is, normally if you get a buff, it's 12%. You get 2 stacks, it's supposed to be 24, and then 36, and so on, right? No. A 4-piece buff works like this. It's 12%, and then when you get a second one, you multiply it by 1.12 again. So it's like 25%. And then the third one becomes 40%. The fourth one becomes 57 point something %, and so on, and like it gets crazy. So if you have several pets up at the same time, like if you have 5 pets up at the same time, you can do some absolutely insane amount of damage. Like I was looking at Sims, and I think the highest number I've seen so far is 600k crit or something.
Pardon me?
600,000 crit. Yes, that is how hard a maximum Arcane Blast can hit on a prismatic crystal. By the way, that buff, it says the damage you deal, not quite. Each pet also buffs himself with the 12%.
What?
So they also do more damage if you have the 4-piece. Only their own buff.
Hurts my brain. So Turkey, then, how does the set work?
Basically, just pray to RNGesus on every single Arcane Missiles cast. You just gotta bring your hands together and just pray.
Oh no! Do you have like a picture of like Raptor Jesus next to your monitor, like you look at every time you cast Arcane Missiles?
Just all of them above my monitor. All the Jaina, Sylvanas, everybody. They're
It's a
just all
collage.
there. Yep.
No, so the biggest problem I saw on this one was that literally it is RNG.
Yep.
On top of, granted the episode's called Warlords of Doomnova, on top of then more RNG. And now is that like a fun interaction, Turkey?
I mean, it's fun if you get lucky, I guess. But other than that, like, the issue is when you're trying to like pick a spec for the fight, you want the one that's consistently doing well. And for Arcane, the numbers just vary very dramatically, especially when you take in stuff, yeah, like Doomnova, with your pets, with your mana adept, with just every single like multiplier. Yeah, like so, I've tried Arcane so many times on multiple different fights, and it's just like, all right, well, this pull I did 10 million damage to imps in the last phase. Last pull I did 2 mil, so just too much RNG, I think.
So then, and Komma's helping me illustrate this with a picture here. It's just the raid summary one, Komma?
Yeah.
So you're showing me here is that no set bonus or Doomnova on a Arcane Mage looks at like 62.4k patchwork DPS.
There's 2 lines there.
Yes.
Can you bring it up on the screen? Yeah.
Yeah. The two lines here. Yeah, I'm bringing it up.
Right.
But like,
so if you look at that right there, there's 2 lines at the start and like in front and behind that that bar. The bar is what you get on average.
Yes.
The 2 lines denote what you get maximum and minimum, like if you do it a million times.
Correct.
So if you look at without the tier bonus and without the Doomnova trinket, which we'll talk about later, RNG isn't that bad. It's like kind of a range which, you know, every fight you get some procs, sometimes you get more, sometimes you don't.
Right.
But with these set bonuses, we are literally going from like really low amount to a really high amount, and that difference there is almost as much DPS as an entire player. So we can literally almost do an extra player's worth of damage if we roll good RNG.
And that's for every pull is different, so...
Yes, every pull is different. Before anyone like brings up the issue of RNG, I want to mention that Arcane Mages with RNG right now is so high that no class. I know a lot of classes, including Retadins, Fury Wars, everyone has complained about RNG, but
Sure.
that's just normal proc RNG. We have something on top of proc RNG. We have a crazy proc. We have a multiplicative effect. We have a trinket that's really low RPPM that does 1,000,000 damage whenever it procs. And our spread is more than double that of the second most RNG class. We're
Yep.
in another dimension.
Literally in another dimension. Yeah. We did some digging too on the pre-show. You can find it if you look at the damage disparities in different percentiles. You can just look at like Zul'Harrak as your not Zul'Harrak, but Zakuun as a way to see the range of Arcane Mage damage propagation is a little bit different. So, I mean, obviously, it's like, what's up?
One more thing. The 2-set heroes are really weird. Like Turkey mentioned earlier, they have this really weird delay between their casts. Sometimes Jaina likes to take coffee breaks in between her frost bolts. She just stands around for like half a second and then casts.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Ice
but
coffee.
sometimes she doesn't. And apparently this effect is changed by haste. If you get some amount of haste, sometimes she decides, yeah, I'll throw a few more frost bolts. But then you'd get some more haste, and suddenly she decides she wants to take her tea breaks again. So it's a really weird set bonus, and it's all... Again, there's also a little bit of RNG there, because it also depends on whether the server is lagging. And it's also affected by haste. So all of this is just really, really frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen this come into effect, like, your progression, Turkey?
Yep, for sure. Like, there's been polls, and you can ask anyone in Midwinter, like, where I'll just be top, say, like, mana off progression, I'll just be the top just because of Doomnova. First imp set will spawn, boom, 4 million done to them. Like, it's just ridiculous.
And then other polls, you'll just kind of
I'll
let that
just
out.
be down there.
Yeah, I don't know, and I can kind of speak for our like raiding community as a whole. No endgame oriented raider likes this variance.
Yep.
Because literally it changes from pull to pull and it's not very fun.
And if you're like expecting that damage to be there and it's not there, then say you miss some check, then just done.
Yep, it changes everything. And that's not incredible. You can't control it at all, so yeah. What off piece do you set for Arcane Mage with the 4-set, Turkey?
Archimonde's Helm.
Archimonde's Helm again. Fair enough.
Or hat.
Or hat. Or cowl or back thing. Yeah. Plank. This big thing behind your head. Yeah. I'll touch on it quick because we gotta move on. Fire's Archimon Trinket is your Inferno Blast, has a 75.76 normal version chance to cast a Flame Strike at the target's location. Again, AoE that doesn't necessarily need to be there. I guess single target upgrade too, but not good.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
The story is that they said it's supposed to work on AoE, but there is no number of targets where you actually want to use it over anything else. So they're still trying to buff it. That's what the latest hotfix to Flame Strike was meant to do, but it's not there yet. So it's a dead trinket. No Fire Mage will want it.
The Frost version, though, the Ice Lances that are cast immediately after Frost Bolt that deal a whole lot more damage, though, Kuni, good?
Oh, yeah. You want the normal version over, like, anything else.
Yeah?
Yeah, just, if you have to go pug a normal Archimon because you don't have it, go do that.
It's very good. But is it a set it and forget it for, like, every encounter, or is there some wiggle room?
I'm pretty sure you just used it on everything.
Yeah?
Because like, there's no flat-out AoE, right? It's just if you're using Frost and you're a normal mage, you're using it on a 2-target fight. So it's buffing most of your cleave.
Okay.
You're going to take it.
Fair enough. And then the Arcane one is your Arcane power also increases the damage and reduces the cast time and global cooldown of Arcane Blast by, again, normal version of the Tome of Shifting Words, 27.45%. So, what does this interaction change with like the Glyph of Arcane Power and stuff, Turkey? Like, what is it a good trinket though, or?
It's good. It's just, at least in my opinion, it makes the spec feel weird. Like, just before we've always just been like had the same kind of rotation, and it's fine to change, but I don't know, it's just off, I guess. I don't like it that much. And yes, when you have it, you want to unglyph Arcane Power.
Okay.
Because basically, when Arcane Power is up, you just want to burn your mana as far as you can and then evocate up.
Okay. But otherwise, if you're not using the Tome of Shifting Words as Arcane, you glyph Arcane Power?
Yes.
I assume for the most stuff? Okay. Because it lines up better with Prismatic Crystal that way, right?
Yes, on the third.
Yeah.
And first.
But if you don't, you want to make sure it lasts as long as possible because you can just dunk Arcane Blasts for,
Huge amounts.
Huge amounts, indeed. So I guess this brings us to... I'm going to move from the skill cap variants across. We kind of talked about that a little bit there. Weapon enchant preferences. Do all 3 mage specs want the same, or does it really kind of vary? Like, what are you using right now, Turkey? For
what, sorry?
For weapon enchant preference.
Oh, using Warsong, Haste Enchant.
Haste enchant? Does
Same
Frost...
with all other
Right. Does Frost want the haste and the multi-strike enchant then, Kuni?
Last I checked, it actually wants the crit enchant.
Yep.
Yeah?
All 3 are pretty close.
Yeah, they're all of them within like what 500 DPS, but crit was just barely edging out the multi-strike one because you have so much multi-strike as Frost on top of Icy Veins being 45% multi-strike. The crit is, it's useful. It buffs Ice Lance. It's a decent enchant.
Fair enough. And then what does Fire want, Komma? Do they want the crit enchant still, or they want something else? Mastery?
Just a crit. Basically, all 3 specs just want, whatever they're attuned, or for Frost, you want crit for the trinket.
Fair enough. That sounds pretty definitive. Now, I don't have a ton of time to talk about this because we talked about so much already, and I want to still get to talents and stuff and have plenty of time to make sure we have enough time to talk about those. But the trinket everyone's talking about and wondering, of course, in chat room, the Prophecy of Fear.
Trinket of Balance.
AKA Doomnova! So...
Hashtag
Doomnova, boys. So the trinket marks your target with Doom. And then damaging attacks to it make the target explode and radiate shadow damage. However, the shadow damage actually, takes into account all of your additive bonuses and crap for Mage. Komma, why?
Yeah, I want to do a little bit of background here.
Sure.
Now, there's been a lot of trinkets that used to, do some damage or proc whatever, right? There's also the legendary cloak, which also from Mists of Pandaria that does damage.
Mm-hmm.
The legendary cloak from Mists of Pandaria never took into account whatever multipliers you had on your character. It just did a static amount of damage, and it was based on your spell power. All the trinkets this tier changed, and now they all take into account whatever multipliers you have on your character, which means the Prophecy of Fear for Arcane Mages does more damage than everyone else, because you have Mana Adept, which is like an 80% buff, you have Arcane Power, which buffs it by 20%, Prismatic Crystal, the Ring, Prismatic Crystal also hits both Prismatic Crystal and the other guy, too. And I don't even remember what else, but there's just a lot of multipliers. Oh, Rune of Power, that one. Encounter Swirl.
Your set bonus, yeah.
Basically, and your set bonus, too. Everything that multiplies the damage you do increases the damage done by Doomnova. I don't know why Blizzard decided to do it this way, but they did. And, of course, it's crazy, because our Doomnovas are literally hitting for twice or 3 times other players. So the end result of that is it's so overpowered they had to nerf our proc rate. So Arcane Mages only have 0.9 RPPM proc rate, where it's 1.5 for everyone else. Ours is 40% less.
Yeah.
Lowering the proc rate of an item is one way to make it weaker, but it's also one way to make it more RNG, because it means whenever this really rare proc happens, it's just absurd. It's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 0.9 RPPM, I think, for Arcane. It's 1.5 base for other casters, and I think 1.2 for Shadow Priest. So, it literally is the lowest RPPM amount for Arcane Mages because of all this shenanigans.
And for everyone who doesn't know, Arcane also has Arcane Missiles, which is 5 hits within 2 seconds. Every single hit is going to trigger Doomnova. So you proc Doomnova, you use a whole bunch of Arcane Missile procs into it, and you're going to get not only triple or 4 times the number of explosions everyone else could get, but they're also hitting for double or triple the amount everyone else is hitting for. And that's why you see those crazy parses where someone is doing 5 million damage within 2 seconds. That's how it works.
Yeah. It's... I don't think I've heard of any other... I mean, chat room brought up, of course, that the soul capacitor trinket for like agility DPS is apparently so much more OP. But there's something that matters for that because it's so arbitrary. Like, you phase out for 10 seconds, you deal no damage, and then at the end of the 10 seconds, or when you cancel the aura, it takes all your damage added up, adds 25-ish% to it, depending on the version you have, and you pop. Doomnova is a totally different beast, though. Kuni, what?
And a thing about the agility trinket is that these people are saying that it's overpowered, but you're not actually doing any damage as per what Scott reported. You're doing your 100% damage plus your 25% damage, and that's being listed as the trinket effect, whereas only a tiny amount of that is actually actual bonus.
Yeah.
Everything else is just damage you would have done anyway.
Correct. You have to check logs, like Warcraft logs, to see the proper amounts from Soul Capacitor, because I don't think either Recount or Scada properly shows it yet still.
They don't.
Yeah. Whereas Doomnova shows it just fine.
It's just additional damage.
Yeah, correct.
It's fine.
And like the tooltip on the normal version of Doomnova says that the Mark of Doom will hit for like 7,100, right? Like, it looks like, all right, that seems like a pretty, average-ish number per spell hit that lands. That seems like a number that fits into Warlords of Draenor. But then what actual, like, individual hits have you seen from your Doomnovas before? Like, what? So 7,100 is the tooltip amount. What have you actually seen from your perspective?
I'm not exactly sure. I could go find out, but my Mythic Trinket has 13k just on the Trinket, like, tooltip itself.
Sure.
I'll go find some logs and see.
Because I would love to see what you actually get in practice for your actual amount from the trinket itself. So, like, it just seems like it should be like that. Like, the Empty Drinking Horn, as far as I know, doesn't have any, like, adds mastery or stats from strength users into the burn, right? Like, it's just the burn each one arbitrary time times the stacks. Right? Like, I was nerfed on the PTR to not be used as for agility classes because assassination, rogues, and enhanced shamans are mastery inflicted more damage. So, yeah, I don't think anything has done that before. I don't know if Doomnova was like just missed in this regard, or just not tested well enough, or what? Because it really is, it makes or breaks certain casters right now. But
the Felwyn Trinket, if I remember correctly, does take into account like paladin buffs and stuff, but I'm not 100% on that. But I
don't know.
Yeah, I wanted to mention though that the Doomnova Trinket is not getting nerfed because Blizzard think it's fine, and the reason they think it's fine is because they look at single target and they're like, it's doing like 6% damage. It's not too ridiculous. But that was never why Doomnova was really overpowered. The overpowered part is when we're talking about mass AoE.
Sure.
Like imps on Zuhorak or imps on Aneroth or whatever. Like, those are the cases where you actually find it overpowered. And apparently Blizzard is okay with Doomnova bringing Arcane from normal, like really, really weak AoE to pretty good AoE. And they don't care as long as it doesn't make as long as Doomnova isn't crazy on single target.
Right. Yeah, and Turkey, you just posted in chat, but I wanted you to put it in the show itself. What, like, individual hits you've seen from your Doomnova?
Yeah, my average on our Manoth kill this week, I think, was around 23k, and it would crit for up to 40k. And then when you're sending 5 hits in 2 seconds, it's pretty ridiculous.
And the Mythic Trinket says 13k base, but you're getting 23k individual hits.
Yep.
Yeah, that seems okay, right? Chat room? It
pretty
seems
good.
Okay. It seems fine. It's fine. Just almost double. Yeah, that's no big deal. I don't... Pockets corrected me, but Felburn affected by players' damage multipliers on like Fury's Mastery, but there's no attack power factored in, which is fine. But the issue, that's the whole thing. Doomnova takes into effect like Arcane's like Mastery and the Prismatic Crystal. Obviously the ring affects everything, but glad the ring was at least nerfed. We're not talking about the ring very much on the show, chat, because we're gonna wait for the catch-up episodes, but like so many weird things with the ring have hopefully been all fixed, but the thought of Arcane mages doing like 5 million damage with the ring because of all the double dipping has hopefully been squelched. But Anything else on the Prophecy of Fear? Anyone?
Pretty good, balanced.
Well,
Yeah, it was recently hotfixed to work with the ring now because it wasn't before.
Oh, so it made it more better.
Yeah, it's
Can't
even
wait till
more
I get the
balanced
ring.
now.
Yay! Okay, fair enough.
Honest opinion though, I don't think they're gonna nerf it until someone really, really breaks things with it.
Well, I'm pretty sure the hands off right now to Warlords is pretty much, they're working on 7.0 now, so I don't think we'll probably see too much of it anymore. Balanced Nova, as chat room says. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But all right then. Move us along real quick. Gonna tell us chat room about some behind the scenes episode stuff, some upcoming thing behind the scenes. I'm losing my words right now. Upcoming shows, some announcements, some websites you should know about, and some things that you maybe didn't know. So real quick, of course, here, if you are new to the game or coming back or want to find some more stuff to do, openraid.org is so good at finding raids, events, old stuff to do. If you're looking for guilds, like trying to find raids to get logs for yourself, to like have for your applications and things like that, there are 362 upcoming freaking events all over the place, to transmog runs, to current runs right now, like all over the place right now. And the open raid back end only got stronger with the pre-made group finder in game now, because it's so much easier to make your groups once you organize them on open raid, and then you send all your invites out through the pre-made group finder. It's really, really good. Openraid.org, their link is down below. We love them, have a lot of fun with them. And of course, if you are coming back again and you want more mage stuff, the mage community, you want to see this button right here that says register. If you want to go over to altered-time.com and get on their forums. They've got all the different Arcane, Fire, Frost, Lore, RP, PvP, add-ons, macros, UI, technical issues, post questions, and ask for help right here, and then general mage discussion. This is your spot! Get on Altered Time if you're a mage, if you're a new mage, returning mage, you have some questions you want answered, all right through here. And of course, they have their IRC linked right here that you can talk to all these people in real time. So go jump on the Altered Time mage wagon. I lost it there. Additionally, if you want some like World of Warcraft news and things and stuff, you can go check out Bellular on YouTube. Interviewed him before he came on the show recently, but if you want to go look at he does lots of videos. He does, I don't know, 3 to 12 a week. Look at these things. He does bunches of like little tips and breakdowns of patch notes and changes to the game and all this good stuff, transmog options and like gearing tips for new characters. Like he just his newest one is how to get to eye level 700 like wicked quick. So yep, you can go check out Bellular Gaming on the YouTubes. Of course, we're on YouTube as well. Boop. All of our past episodes, kill POVs from or kill videos from my POV. This is a Warlock episode we just did. There's Windwalker Monks, there's Enhancement Shamans, all the after shows and main shows, all the side content, the patch 6.2 discussions I had live with chat room, some side content and all that good stuff is all found on our YouTube page. We're also on iTunes and Stitcher. Just search for FinalBossTV for the audio-only versions. All that stuff is up right there. Links down below. All for your viewing pleasure. Additionally, if you want to help support FinalBossTV, some people on Twitter might have seen some new designs that are coming to our apparel and shop for Designed by Humans that we have through them. The Method World First Blackhand shirt is here. There is going to be new artwork for the next Method kill for Arcane, for Gul'dan Hellfire Citadel. Of course, all this stuff goes to support the show. I'm pretty sure I'm between 3 and 9 new designs coming before BlizzCon, if not more. For you guys, if you want to have those, I'll be bringing a lot of free t-shirts and swag from our shop to BlizzCon this year. And upcoming episodes, next weekend. The first time in the show's history. August 1st and August 2nd. There is a show both days. I don't know what having like a weekend to fully work will be, but we'll see. And those 2 episodes are going to be on August 1st, finally. We have worked out to have the Method World First Mythic Hellfire Citadel interview. It starts a little bit earlier than normal, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and 2 p.m. Eastern with its 8 p.m. Central European Summertime. Again, the artwork we have coming for them will be there. Our guests are going to be Sko, and Roger Brown will return, and then we'll sit down with Suni for some healer POV talk, because we didn't talk about healing stuff the last 2 World First interviews, one with Method, one with Paragon. So Suni will be here to talk about healing stuff. So remember, mark your calendar for that. That's Saturday, August the 1st And then Sunday, August the 2nd, this has been a big one coming for a long time. The Final Boss Square Table Chat. The first time I've ever broken my guest rule happens at 4 p.m. Eastern. I'll be sitting down with Preach, Alt Chat, Bellular, Nobble the Noble, and Kelric to talk about the state of Warlords of Draenor, what we like, what we don't like, mostly like a huge live think tank to sort of like poll the different sides of World of Warcraft and come to conclusions about what we think would be better for the game, and what we don't like, what we love, what we'd like to see more of and see less of, and just give our opinions for close to a 2-hour-long show. So that will be pretty amazing, I think, and I hope to see you all there for both episodes. Again, August the 1st will be Method, and August 2nd will be the Square Table Chat. So more info will come out on that, of course, social media. We'll see you there. But enough about me talking about stuff. Let's talk about Mage Talents. You ready, gentlemen? Are you ready?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Let me close some of these things, and I will bring up the talent calculator. We'll kind of roll through these for the next about 15 minutes, gentlemen. We'll talk about a whole lot of stuff this show. So we'll kind of do these in chunks. So I'll get fire first. Each mage talent tier, 75 and 100, has one talent that stays the same with Unstable Magic and Prismatic Crystal. And then you have like your cooldown tier, your cooldown trinket, or talent rather. And then your like your meteor or your comet storm and whatnot. So for fire, you've got Kindling, Prismatic Crystal, Meteor, and then Living Bomb, which is the bomb talent choice, then Unstable Magic, and then Blast Wave. So I'll throw it to Komma first. What are like the options you can take for fire? Like if you're still rolling with it out of these two tiers, then of course you can, migrate in 90, even though I've kind of, I guess 90 is like, there's only 2 choices ever. So.
Right. I guess I'll just cover 90 real quick, which is the same for all specs.
Absolutely.
Actually, for mages, 15 through 60 and 90 are the same for all 3 specs, basically. So anyway,
go for it.
90 for 90 talents, all 3 specs have the same choices. You choose Reel of Power if you don't move, which doesn't really happen in Hellfire Citadel since you run all over the place, or you choose Incanter's Flow if you're moving. Mirror Image is not a good idea because, again, pets aren't affected by Mastery. Mastery only affects your own spells. So since we have a pretty good amount of Mastery now, Mirror Image has fallen behind the other 2. That's the story for 90 for all 3 specs. Okay. Going specifically into fire, though, and actually this statement also applies to all 3 specs. We actually have a lot of options, which is pretty different from most classes.
Yes.
It is good news. Now, the 75 and the level 100 talents are actually really closely linked. Whatever you choose for 75 often depends on your items and also depends on what you choose for 100. For all 3 specs, actually, go fire for specifically. Fire specifically, you choose Prismatic Crystal for single target, which is, by the way, pretty hard to play. It's a really high risk, high reward playstyle, and you can fail epically. If you choose Prismatic Crystal, you will usually choose either Blast Wave, or for some reason you could choose Unstable Magic. It's not very popular. And in the case of AoE, you would choose Kindling for 100, combined with usually either Living Bomb or Blast Wave. Living Bomb for a high number of targets, Blast Wave for when you just want to burst AoE, like that adds die really quickly. Mm-hmm. The one left out here is Meteor, which it's not a dead talent. It's not chosen in current content. At high mall levels of gear and before, Meteor was a pretty good way of playing because you didn't have a lot of crit, and you couldn't play Crystal reliably. And I guess that sort of sums up the 2 situations, which is single target, Prismatic Crystal plus usually Blast Wave, or you could play Unstable Magic. Multi-target Kindling with either Living Bomb or Blast Wave, depending on whether you do Burst or not.
Fair enough. Seems pretty straightforward, I guess, in that regard. Why does Unstable Magic not work for fire as much? Just because it has a higher amount of chance to explode, but...
Right. there's actually a common theme in the 75 tier of talents. You'll notice that all 3 spells are sort of like do some damage to your main target and have a cleave effect.
Sure.
Unstable magic is sort of designed as the passive kind of lazy thing, but actually because it's based on your core spells and your core spells benefit from critical mass, it actually scales pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Problem for fire is that when you get more crit, you get more gear, you cast less fireballs because you cast more pyroblast.
And it doesn't work on pyroblast.
And pyroblast doesn't work with unstable magic. Another thing with unstable magic that I want to bring up, and this applies to all 3 tiers, is it's actually a little bit of a trap talent. Because unstable magic works off your filler. In any patchwork fight, you're going to cast a lot of filler. But on any fight where you move a lot, you're never going to cast the same number of fireballs or frostbolts or arcane blasts. You're always going to lose some cast. It's really easy to cast Living Bomb every 12 seconds. It's really easy to cast Blast Wave on cooldown. You will always, that's almost something you'll always get 100% benefit out of. Unstable magic is the kind of talent where if you're not very good at maximizing your number of casts, you will never get as much value out of it as a really experienced mage playing a stationary fight.
Gotcha. Pretty definitive, I think. That makes sense to me. I mean, I'm totally a mage noob. My mage is like level 30, so I have no idea what I'm doing. But that makes sense. And it's just, Unstable Magic, of course, is just RNG. Whereas, like, you can cast Living Bomb and you can cast Blast Wave. Whereas, like, Unstable Magic can happen? So, makes sense.
Yep.
We'll move over to Kuni with Frost. Sir, walk me through this. How's this work?
All right, so again, for single target, you're taking Prismatic Crystal.
Right.
Mostly for Frost, it has a 10% bonus instead of a 30%, like the other 2 specs.
Right.
Reason being is Glyph of Splitting Ice allows you to cleave Ice Lance and Icicles, and that will cleave off Prismatic Crystal. So it takes a little bit more skill because you have to be very accurate. You have to place it directly under the boss. You can't be like where Arcane can place it within the 8 yards. Just as long as Prismatic Crystal is pulsing and hitting the boss, you actually have to be in range to cleave.
Okay.
And that is usually smaller than Prismatic Crystal's range in general. On multi-target fights, you're taking Thermal Void. Thermal Void just, you want more multi-strike because Prismatic Crystal meteors, Comet Storm meteors, you don't really have another choice.
And that's, of course, with your glyphing Icy Veins to make it multi-strike, not haste, right? Okay.
Yes, that's a mandatory glyph.
Okay.
We're actually using Unstable Magic for single target right now. And for cleave. So it's kind of weird. Reason being, Frost Bomb, while at first glance looks like it's really great, because it explodes on Ice Lance. You're casting so many Ice Lances. How do you fit Frost Bomb's cast time while Water Jet's active? Because it lasts 2 seconds less. So what do? Do you sit there and stack it up at the end, and then you have to throw a Frostbolt into each Ice Lance because of the class trinket? You just have so much setup time on every Ice Lance, and Frost Bomb's cast itself does no damage. Unstable Magic, on the other hand, it also triggers off of Frost Firebolt, because originally Frost Firebolt was an alternative filler for fire. To make it even, they just made it proc off of that, but we have this now. The 20% buff to Frostbolt and Frost Firebolt in 6.2 pushed Unstable Magic ahead of the others. And Ice Nova is, again, your burst AoE talent. Ads are up for a very short amount of time. Blow it up.
So the same obviously Rune of Power and Encounter's Flow, like Komma just
those
said.
are...
Rune if you're turreting, Encounters if you're moving.
I will say one thing, that there are probably more situations in which to use Rune than Komma thinks.
But, for Frost, though? For Frost.
Well, for all 3 specs.
Oh, okay.
It's not a terrible talent. It's just, in most cases, you're going to get better use out of Encounter's Flow, but there are a number of fights, and within that, even more strategies on other fights that will allow you to use Rune of Power.
But still, no... Comstorm looks cool. Still not...
It's... like, it would be great if it didn't Meteor.
Yeah.
Because again, each one of those comets, all 7, proc Doomnova as well, so that could be really fun, except for the fact that it's always going to do the set amount of damage despite how many ads you have.
Fair enough.
Actually tried that on Manaroth and just didn't work out.
Yeah, I can't imagine it would.
Yeah.
If Doomnova was like an on use to trigger it, I could see that work.
Yeah.
But it's a strict 30-second cooldown. You need to use it on cooldown.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Turkey. Arcane me. Or something. Phrasing?
Alrighty. So to start off, I'll just start off with overpowered, I guess. It's not terrible, but it's not amazing. So it's kind of just there. You can mess with it if you want, but I would recommend Prismatic Crystal for single target, just because it, like everything we talked about before, just insane damage when you take in all of your like arcane power, 2-piece, everything, or 4-piece, sorry. And then Arcane Orb, you want to take on a fight like the first fight, like just basically any fight where there's ads left up for you to get missiles off of and skip the like stacking to 4 charges.
Oh, okay. Arcane Orb, actually, I feel for you, mages. Arcane Orb was so much larger and looked cooler in the beta for this game, and now it's like tiny and dinky. I feel bad. It looked so cool. But anyway, it still looks kind of cool, but alright.
I think I've actually used Orb on more fights than I have Crystal.
Really? Huh.
I might have to go back and recount, but yep. I like that talent a lot. And then as for 75, for a single target you want to take Unstable Magic, unless there's something that you need priority damage on, say like Doomfire Spirit or Kill Rogads or even Gore Fiend. Supernova is just, it's just good for like killing the target that you need to kill in a second.
Right.
And having the buttons to press. And then Nether Tempest. I know Komma likes this talent a lot. It's basically just if you have, say, 3 targets and they have to be stacked in there for a long time for it to be worth it.
Like, would Nether Tempest work on, like, Archimon? With, like, you've always got, like, a Doombringer up and Archimon? Like, would that benefit it or not enough? You need, like, 3 plus?
I think it would work on Archimon. Just the issue is you need the priority damage, so you'd have to take Supernova.
So Supernova, yeah. And now with Supernova Weaving, since this is a spec that actually uses this a lot more often, do you always want to have like one charging and one ready, or can you sit on 2 charges and wait for a certain part of the encounter?
You never really want to sit on 2. Like if you're taking Prismatic Crystal, then you want to have one ready for Supernova, or have one ready for Crystal, and then have the other one come up during Crystal.
During Crystal, okay.
Yeah. The only fight that I've ever sat on Supernova charges was Manaroth for the Imps.
How long? It doesn't say actually on the tooltip here I'm looking at. How long does Crystal last? 10 seconds, right?
12.
It's 12?
12? 12.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so timing a way to like Prismatic Crystal, Supernova, and then like blast the hell out of it, and then end with a Supernova. I guess that's sort of how you want to weave your Prismatic Crystals.
Yes, kind of. You also want to use your Supernova while you have like high enough mana, though.
Well, right, sure. To make sure that it... So if you go into a Prismatic Crystal with high mana, you can just Nova it, because it obviously benefits more from your mastery, I guess, in that regard?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I guess that's interesting. I mean, mages are one of the only talent trees I think I have ever looked at that just goes like utility, stuff, utility, and then like DPS. And there are enough wiggle rooms in these where you can really kind of like move around these talents and choices outside of mirror images, I guess. Which I guess mirror images is there for PvP, I would assume. But like it really does look like you can have some finagling here, and that's always I bring up on the show. It's always a positive to me because the whole point of this talent system was to have choices. And if you didn't have choices, it wasn't a talent system. It was a cookie cutter little like I'm gonna take this, and leave it forever. So that's good. Yeah.
I actually like Mage Talent Tree. It's there's a lot of choice. You can play around with a lot of things.
We mentioned a bunch of default options, but actually, like, there are some people who even played Prismatic Crystal on AoE fights in Blackrock Foundry or Fire, and it works fine, honestly.
Yeah. It's
just a very different play style, and we can't cover all of them, but there's a lot of options here, such as Overpowered, it can work, Nether Tempest, it can work, and it's really hard to cover all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. There's probably a lot of iterations, but it looks like, at least for the most part, then you're not just like pigeonholed into taking a spec for a class. or a spec for each spec of your Fire, Frost, or Arcane. So that's very good. We'll go in reverse real quick here. Any big changes that you guys want to talk about, like with your utility talents, 15, 30, 45, and 60? Do you want to like roll me through?
Yeah, I'd like to go through them real quick.
Sure.
The 45 tier is the one that we don't really care about because they're all mostly control and you can't really root or freeze anything. Occasionally, Ring of Frost is nice. Say like on Sokrathar, you can use it to freeze ghosts. The 60 tier is the survival tier. There's a lot of discussion about whether you want to choose Greater Invisibility or Cauterize. Cold Snap is mostly a PvP talent, but just to deviate a little, Cold Snap resets Dragon's Breath, and with the latest hotfix, Dragon's Breath hits like a truck, so Fire Mages are starting to think about just running into melee, Dragon's Breath, Cold Snap, Dragon's Breath, all that crazy stuff. It's too much to talk about here, but the default is usually Greater Invis and Cauterize. Cauterize is just your get out of jail free card.
Right.
Greater Invis is, okay, there's something you know it's going to hit you really hard, you can use it to prevent it, or you can use it to drop a debuff. So usually it's a question of, do you feel like you're going to die to something you don't expect? If yes, go Cauterize. If not, Greater Invisibility. Okay. The 30 tier is our survival tier. There's Alter Time, Flame Glow, and Ice Barrier. Ice Barrier is just use it when you think something's going to hit you.
Sure.
Alter Time is not actually a survival talent as much as it is a heal, because the utility you get out of it is dependent on how much courage you have in terms of fitting damage within your life bar. Because if you die during it, you lose all value of it. You just die.
Right.
So it's like, how low HP do you dare go before pressing that button? That's what Alter Time is. And it works well for a lot of, say, predictable damage mechanics. Say, like, I used it back then on Imperator to soak Arcane Wrath. Just soak it and, like, pass it to another person and Alter Time back. Yeah. And people use it now for Gorfiend to drop pools to get back into position, too.
Right.
Flame Glow is the default. I don't really know what I want to use, or I'm learning an encounter and I don't really want to waste global cooldowns or attention doing other things. I'm just going to take a talent so I take less damage. That's what Flame Glow is. And it's pretty popular. Yeah. It's passive.
Exactly.
There was a PvP nerf to it. It nerfed the maximum amount of like percent damage that it can soak, but it doesn't matter to us because everything that hits us in PvE hits for so much harder anyway.
Sure.
We're always limited by our spell power on Flame Glow instead of whatever percent limitation.
Gotcha.
Works really great against ticking spells like Black Hands, Crucible, or whatever aura. I think there's like a few auras in Hellfire Citadel. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
You can say like Kilrog's Mark of Death ability because you have a dot for the whole fight kind of thing. Or a Heartseeker, yeah, exactly.
The only weird utility tier is tier 15,
right? Where
we have Ice Flows, Blazing Speed, and Evanesque. Blazing Speed is mostly a PvP talent because you never really need to run fast as a mage. There are certain usages, like Turkey has mentioned, you can use it for if you need to soak something or run really quickly for whatever reason, but it's rare. Usually we just blink around. Ice Flows is the talent we use for maximizing damage, just casting on the move. Evanesque is the real outlier here because it's an immunity talent. It's defensive. The original idea was, okay, you can use Evanesque so you don't need to move out of some crap on the floor, whereas if you didn't have it, you would have to move. The problem is, fire on the floor usually lasts more than 3 seconds. Fire lands on you, you use Evanesque, 3 seconds you have to run out anyway. You don't gain anything. The other problem is Evanesque replaces Ice Block. And it doesn't, like, I'm not sure it's still the case, but everything that Evanesque can block, Ice Block definitely can. But the reverse was not true.
Ooh, okay.
It used to be implemented like a deterrence. So sometimes stuff would just go through it and kill you anyway. It's a little better now, but like you don't really know if you want to take a risk on whether something is defended against. And the other problem is Evanesque doesn't clear debuffs, which Ice Block does.
Sure.
So it's the only weird one because it's a survival talent in a movement tier.
Well, it's like what Turkey brought up before, which you can touch on now, is that you can Evanesque a cleave decapitation crap on Zakun, but you can't ice block it, right?
No, you can ice block as
You can
well.
ice
It's just
block it too?
wouldn't be up for every single one. Like
Oh, right.
with
It's a cooldown
cavitation,
difference.
yep. With cavitation, you can rotate Evanesce and Greater Invis, so your raid never has to move for that ability. And then, yeah, on Zoharak, you can have like 3 or 2 mages go out and do empowered chains and immune every single one if you get lucky enough. If it picks the correct target. So, like,
Yeah, it's crazy.
it's a really good talent, but you need to realize that like there's an ability on say like a 45 or 50-second timer that like the ability is ready for it, and it's always there to be able to be used. If you're only using it say like once in a fight, then there's no reason to take it.
It's the cheese talent, basically.
Yep.
The cheese talent, right. You can sort of similarly do that kind of stuff with deterrences on hunters. It's similar, but with this, you can Evanesce or Greater Invis, like in this Zakun situation, only one mage just does the whole fight.
Yep.
Right? Like, no one else has to worry about it at all. So, pretty powerful stuff. I'll give a minute or two. I think we'll move a little bit of this to the after show when we take some viewer questions, but I wanted to give you each time to have some soapboxing about mage stuff or some tips or tricks you want to leave your mage community with. Kuni, you're up first. Go, sir, go.
Oh, man.
The pressure.
Most of my tricks were covered in our talent discussion. Like Evanesce for, large impacts. It's a movement talent through not moving. Being able to Evanesce, say, Iron Reaver's Barrage.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to actually working, also scares the shit out of your healers. Alter Time on Gorefiend again, yes. You take it. You can actually jump off the ledge on Gorefiend, drop the debuff, and come back, and you'll be fine.
Yikes. Cool stuff.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary, but it works. And then you save a little bit rim by doing that.
It's sort of like a mage portal.
Yeah.
Version for like a warlock portal. That's
what
the
warlock type, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Fair enough. Turkey?
Don't really have any tips necessarily, just I guess like you can play for your raid more than a lot of people think, and you can save a lot of people's movement or DPS or healing, and sure it might not like make you the best on the meters, but sometimes you just gotta realize like, hey, I'm doing this for the raid. It's okay if I lose damage as long as they don't have to do these specific abilities.
Right.
And then as for soapboxing, like I just want to thank all the people who like made Alter Time, like Komma and everything, because I remember Mage before that website, and it was just super hard to find info or just like really just have a place to talk. So thanks to them for that.
Very nice. Komma, you're up last, sir. What you got?
Yeah. For tips and tricks, I'd like to mention that we get a lot of questions about how to do better DPS on Alter Time, and the number one thing I wanted to say is it's not really about tips and tricks. It's about the basics. It's about casting as much as you can, not missing procs, using everything as much as you can. That's kind of the biggest thing that's stopping a lot of people from doing good numbers or just performing well in general. So don't focus too much on things like openers or specific cast sequences or tricks or whatever. Focus more on just doing the right thing at the right time, casting the right spells. And I'd like to do a shout out to the Alter Time crew, Dutch Caver, Frosted, all the mods, to Psychobi for the show prep. I'd like to shout out to some of the Moonguard folks for helping me with the screenshots, and I guess to you for inviting me to the show.
Well, absolutely, sir. No, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you all on, and it is time to hit this button because we are really cutting it close on time here. But thank you for tuning in to episode number 89 of Final Boss TV for Mages. This is the last major junket interview for the Warlords set. The class of views, of course, we have the catch-up episodes coming on in the future. Real quick, around the table real quick, we had on the show today 4 mages. We had Komma. You can go follow again. We just talk about it the whole damn show. Go to altered-time.com, join the mage community. And thank you very much for being on the show, sir. It was a blast, literally. I mean, an arcane blast. I'm sorry. But thank you, sir. Are you there? Komma? Oh, okay. Gotcha. We also had Turkey on the show. You can follow Turkey on Twitter at TurkeyMW. And hopefully we have a Arcamon is dead tweet soon, sir.
Hopefully, man. Jeez.
Yeah, I look forward to it. But thank you for being on the show, sir. It's awesome. I appreciate it.
Me.
And then Kuni, representing all those Frost mages out there, you can go follow him on Twitter at KuniZerkai on Twitter. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. fun.
Envious of your beard, I will say. So appreciate that. And then, of course, next week's episodes, there are 2 of them. We're doing the, that's the wrong graphic. We'll do the Method World First Hellfire Citadel interview August the 1st. Starts at 2 p.m. Eastern, 2 hours earlier than normal. And then on Sunday, a week from today, we're doing the Square Table Chat with Kellerick, Novel, Belialer, myself, Preach, and Alt Chat. That starts at the normal time at 4 p.m. Eastern. So we'll see you there for all of those. If you have questions for either method or for our Square Table Chat, please send them into the link down below. And trust in your seal of inevitable fate, or your caches from your shipyard. And until next week, everybody, thank you for watching, and bye-bye! Wave, Zuni! Yeah, there we go, we did it! Oh,